Gentleman from Minnesota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When you ask a small business owner or an entrepreneur about the challenge of starting a new business, they will often tell you that the key to their success is keeping talented employees and recruiting talented employees to keep their company moving forward. And today we have an opportunity to help startup companies. The Empowering Employees Through Stock Ownership Act is a bipartisan initiative that focuses on two simple but very important concepts: keeping the United States on the forefront of innovation and promoting employee ownership. I want to thank my colleague, Representative Crowley from New York, for his bipartisan leadership on this issue as well. Mr. Speaker, today our tax code is forcing many mid- and lower-level employees at startup companies and businesses around the country to let a very promising investment opportunity pass them by. And unlike employees at larger, more established companies, startup employees are often offered compensation in the form of stock options, a significant part of their compensation. And it's a common practice for a business that is developing a new and promising technology but is not yet profitable. But more and more employees at startups these days aren't exercising their stock options. And that's because if they do, they get hit with a bill and a tax bill from the IRS, a tax bill that can be unaffordable because they don't have the cash available to make the tax payment, which is due immediately. As a result, employees are letting their stock options expire, missing out on thousands and thousands of dollars that could help them send their kids to college or plan for their retirement. So here's a simple solution today, Mr. Speaker. The Empower Employees Through Stock Ownership Act will let an employee defer their tax payment for a reasonable period, 7 years, or until there is a market for their stock, which they could then sell to get the money needed to pay the tax bill. Many employees are drawn to startup businesses these days for the opportunity to work on shaping the future, the next innovative solution that can improve the lives of millions of people. It might be in healthcare, it might be treating cancer, or it could be in developing new mobile computer technology. They're also drawn, though, to the chance and the opportunity to have some ownership over this new idea. However, some are now choosing to instead stay at or go to a more larger established company because they know that at a startup business, they could face a very unfortunate tax situation. So to put it simply, Mr. Speaker, the tax code should not stand in the way of developing new life-changing technologies. We should help these startups attract new employees and new talent and help those employees chase their dreams to seek new creative environments that could lead to the next breakthrough innovation. The legislation is also designed to promote employee ownership. Only those individuals at startup businesses where similar stock options are offered to 80% of their employees or more will be eligible for the tax deferral provided in the bill. This will encourage businesses to offer more of their employees an ownership stake, as well as serve as a very important guardrail to prevent companies that only offer stock options to a select few high-level employees from taking advantage of any provisions in the legislation. Importantly, the Empowering Employees Through Stock Ownership Act also contains several provisions to ensure that only those employees that truly need tax referral are actually able to obtain it. Individuals that own more than 1% of a business, the CEO, the CFO, and the 4 highest paid employees at a business are not eligible for deferral. Mr. Speaker, the Empowering Employees Through Stock Ownership Act is part of Leader McCarthy's innovation initiative here in the House. It's endorsed by the Venture Capital Association, the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council, and dozens of businesses around the country. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter their 3 letters of support into the record. And Mr. Speaker, I would just urge all of my colleagues in supporting this very common sense legislation, bipartisan legislation, bicameral legislation to increase employee ownership and accelerate American innovation. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back and reserve the balance.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Michigan.